back with another video. This video I'm gonna talk about how certain players, because their reputation and how well liked they are, they tend to get a little bit overrated. Some of these players include, but not limited to, Larry Bird, Dirk, Allen Iverson for sure, and to a lesser degree I would say Kobe and Derrick Rose, but it isn't as to the same degree as the three players I named before, so I'm going to leave them out of this for the most part. But I would say the players like Larry Bird, since they're so, I guess, legendary, and like Allen Iverson, who has such a big impact on the NBA, such a big influence, people tend to overrate them, which is like, I don't think that's the right thing to do. For example, I feel like people think Larry Bird was some knockdown three-point shooter when he really wasn't. Like, for his career, he shot like 38% on like, what, 2 attempts? Either like 2 or 4 attempts, which for his era is really good. But and if you consider all the players that came after him, he's not a top 10 three-point shooter all time. He's not any of these things. And just how the aura around him just being some great three-point shooter, the story of him going to the three-point challenge or the three-point contest, and where he still had his tracksuit on and said, "Oh, who's coming in second?" Like, yeah, those are cool and great moments, but it doesn't. I feel like his career gets very much overrated because of things like that. Someone like Dirk, for example, that 2011 run is very overrated to me. Like, besides the only great team, well, let me not say that. The only team where I would say he shouldn't have been the favorite against was in the finals against the Heat. He went against a young OKC team, an older Lakers team who he had a year before they won the chip in 2010. It was just like they were all battered up. Pau Gasol was hurt. Kobe was hurt. It was just like, okay. And even you could argue in 2010 the Lakers weren't supposed to beat Boston. I wanted them to win, and I'm happy they did win. But Boston was the better team on paper. Kevin Garnett, after his knee surgery, he wasn't the same KG he used to be. But more or less, he was still better on par with Pau Gasol and Ray Allen, Paul Pierce. Kobe, the Lakers had the best player, but after him, it was just Paul Pierce was the second. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't any. If a team was supposed to win that finals matchup, it was supposed to be the Celtics, like they did in 08. That's not the point. But yeah, Dirk, he beat a young OKC team. He beat, I'm trying to say who he played in there. I think it was OKC in the conference finals. I know he beat Kobe in the first round, I think. I'm trying to think who else he played. But yeah, that whole thing gets overrated. Like, yeah, he did what he was supposed to do. He won a ring against a super team, which was very impressive. But Dirk, before that, was low-key a playoff choker. The years where early in his career we had Steve Nash, he wasn't Dirk, but he was still a good player at the time. He didn't get that far. I feel like Dirk is a little bit overrated. And due to that 2011 run, it just boosts his whole career. Allen Iverson, forget about it. Allen Iverson might be one of the most overrated players of all time. Like, he's an inefficient scorer, and I know for his era, I know that he played in a more physical era before all the old heads say something. And he was not undersized, but he was smaller. And he played on bad teams. But still, his shooting splits were horrible. He was somebody, when he was put in winning positions, when he was with Denver, yeah, he was a little older, but he wasn't washed. Like, let's stop with that narrative. He wasn't just some scrub putting up like 2 points a game. Like, no, Allen Iverson could still hoop when he was playing with Melo. And they were actually a worse team with him. When they got Chauncey Billups, it was a better team, and they actually made the Western Conference Finals. But this aura around him, since he changed rules in basketball with the way he dressed, the way he carried himself, and how authentic he was as a person. Because we all know he was arrested, and I'm not saying you have to be a real person to get arrested, but you know, the way he just connected with his community and the NBA community as a whole, people just, they like him more, and it tends to get him overrated at certain degrees. And then, of course, him carrying the Sixers to the 0-1 finals, where he did get a game, where he was the only team to get a game against Shaq and Kobe, which is impressive in itself. And of course, he had to step. You know, that's my phone case right now. Him stepping over Tyronn Lue. That's my phone case. But he created. All I'm saying is these three players, especially Larry and Allen Iverson, created iconic moments and are well liked. So I think it tends to this aura around them being overrated, which is fine. But it's just like, let's appreciate these players for who they were and not who we think them to be. Because Larry Bird, he's one of those players who didn't have the longest prime because of he had back issues. Dirk has a lot of longevity. Dirk, he played until like he was 40. But these players, nah, why did Evan Mobley just swap me like that? But these players just tend to get overrated. And I feel like us as NBA fans, we do that a lot. Like I said, how with Kobe, you know, especially since him dying, I feel like Kobe's one of those players where he's either really ranked properly or he's just rated. Like, there's people who don't have him in their top 10. There's people who think players like Jerry West are better than him, which, I mean, it's just like, okay, bro, whatever. I've heard Gail Goodrich is better than him. Like, the only players I think you can argue are better than Kobe, which is MJ, Braun, and maybe Magic, and maybe Kareem. Not maybe Magic, you can argue that, but maybe Kareem to me. But anybody else, I don't really want to hear it. But I just feel like Kobe and Derrick Rose, people have him as the biggest what if in history. And they say, oh yeah, if he didn't get hurt, he'd be a top 5 point guard of all time. And it's just like, are we watching the same Derrick Rose? Like, when I tell you when Derrick Rose got hurt, I still blame their coach to this day. They were up by like 12 with a minute left. Like, that, I hate watching that game. That was against the 76ers, bro. And the Sixers ended up winning that series. Like, I hate that series so much. Like, the world was frozen when Derrick Rose got hurt. And I really wish he didn't. But have people say he's better than prime Westbrook, it's just like, no. Derrick Rose is a great athletic scorer. But he was never, ever better than Westbrook. And that's no bias. But he's not. Westbrook in his prime was putting up 30, 10, and 10. Derrick Rose shooting splits towards maybe his MVP year, his mid-range got a little better in his streak, but for the most part, the same people who criticize Westbrook for his inefficiency will give Derrick Rose that leeway. But yeah, Derrick Rose, I think he suffers from that a little bit. Even players like, I feel like, because he's a little bit underrated at the same time, but players like T-Mac and Melo, T-Mac and Melo, they suffer from this aura where they were just so good. People don't underrate them. But I feel like Melo, he's either really overrated or underrated. Like, it can never be proper with them. And so someone like T-Mac, people say he was one of the greatest scorers of all time, which is true. He had a 7-year stretch where you couldn't touch my son T-Mac. But he didn't win. Like, his greatness, his scoring ability did not lead to wins. So it's just like, he played with Yao Ming. He never even made it out the first round. So it's just like, I remember when they went up 2-1 against, I'm trying to think what team was that he went up 2-1 against them. And he was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to finally see what it's like to go to the second round. And he ended up losing, bro. Like, it's just like, that cockiness, it did it. All I'm saying is T-Mac, aura is a big part of basketball. Like, it plays into who we think's a legend and who we think's just another great player. Kobe has an aura around him, the way he approached basketball. But when this aura is overblown to a point where we overrate the player's skill and ability on the court, that could be a problem. Again, me with the rambling. I'm going to try, bro, when I get more used to this, bro, it's going to be better. But I think that's just the end of this video. I'm trying to think of other players who suffer this, but those are just some of the main players that suffer from the aura. It's something we should think about as basketball fans the next time we talking about certain players and things of that nature.